Alrighty, so I decided to do a tutorial because one of you ladies last week was asking how do you spread a milliliter of epoxy over a 30-ounce cup? How is that possible? So I know that a lot of you guys are beginners on here, so I wanted to do a tutorial on how to do the epoxy method. So to start, when you use the epoxy method, it's always best to try to use Rustoleum spray paint as close to the glitter colors that you're going to be using. So this will be my primary color that's going to be on the bottom. So I wanted to try to get some sort of like royal blue, and then I'm going to use this on the top. So the reason why you want to do this is because you'll end up using less glitter in the long run. And if you're like me and you use higher quality glitter that costs you like $6 or $7 for 2 ounces, you want to try to be as sparing as you possibly can so you're not running through your products as often. So I start with this and then I'm kind of going to just blend the colors. And then the other thing you want to do is you want to get this, since we're only going to be using 1 milliliter of epoxy, you want to try to get this as warm as you can. For two reasons. One, it's going to be much easier for you to spread your epoxy if your epoxy is already warm. And then the other thing too is if it's warm, it won't leave behind streaks. When you do the epoxy method and you're using a cold cup, it'll actually leave streaks that you will be able to see in your glitter, and there's no way to get this off. You're just going to have to strip it and start over. So we're going to use this. I got this on Amazon. It's just a little just like a little heat gun, and I'm just going to warm up my tumbler really quick. So that's pretty warm. The other way you can do this, and this is actually the way that I'd prefer to do it, you can set it on your turner and actually just leave it under a heat lamp. I love my heat lamps. I got them on Amazon, and they're really helpful as far as curing your epoxy a little bit faster. And by that I mean, so before I was using my heat lamps, it was taking probably maybe 5 or 6 hours before my cups were dry to the touch. Now I'm able to get them dry to the touch in like 2 hours. So it significantly cuts your dry time in half. So with that said, I usually use those to warm my cups, but it's totally up to you. So I don't recommend attempting to mix a milliliter of epoxy total. I would do 10 mLs of A and 10 mLs of B, and then mix those together. The epoxy method is best done when you have other cups to cover. So this is another cup that I am currently working on that needs a layer of epoxy over top. So I mixed up enough to cover this and do a milliliter of epoxy on this cup that I'm about to glitter. So my cup's getting kind of cold, so I'm going to go ahead and put this on here. And you know, I don't exactly measure out 1 ml. I just kind of guesstimate, and then you're just going to run it all over. when you start spreading this, it's gonna get hard. You wanna cover it up here, all over. So you really gotta work at it. It does get pretty difficult to spread, and that's how you know that you have a good amount. It should be hard to spread. If it's easy to spread, you've got way too much just on your other gloved hand, go ahead and wipe it off, because too much will cause your glitter to lay flat, and you're not going to have that like dimensional glitter that you want. It'll almost look like, I don't know how to explain it. I wish I had a picture I could show you guys. But anyway, it'll just make your glitter really flat, and you don't want that. So just make sure it's good and covered. If you do have streaks or lines in your cup and they're pretty big, I do recommend that you stick it back on your turner, or you use the heat gun to warm up your cup before you stick any glitter on it, because like I said, you will be able to see it once the glitter goes on. And then once you put the glitter on it, it's you can't do anything about it. So I know a lot of people like to use the Mod Podge method, which is fine. That's how I started making cups. For the longest time, I was afraid to use the epoxy method because it was just something different, and I just hadn't learned that way. But since I've been using the epoxy method, I just think that my cups turn out so much better. And I'm using a lot less glitter, like probably more than half of what I was using. So to put my glitter on, I just use a sheet of just copy paper. You can also use parchment paper if you want. So I'm going to show you guys how to do like an ombre effect now. I want to start with. So I like to start with my most prominent colors up top and down below first, and then I'll kind of do a fade in. My husband's actually going to make me a little holder so that I can toggle back and forth between glitter colors, and it's not as difficult for me. Let's see if I haven't used this one yet. So we're going to use this next. Some people just like to use just a chunky glitter over the area, and that's fine. You can do that. I prefer to use my chunky glitter first and then go back with like a finer cut, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. When you go back with the finer cut, I think it just helps to fill in any gaps that you might have in your chunkier glitter. So all I'm doing is trying to get as close to that line as I can, and then I'm going to start my ombre. So a good way to do this is to hold your cup at like a 45-degree angle and hold your glitter up as high as you can get it that's comfortable for you, and try to just sprinkle as little as you can. And you'll see how it starts to kind of just barely go into the white. That's what we want. And you're just turning your cup. This does take some practice, so don't get discouraged if it doesn't work your first time. I've been doing cups for almost 5 years now, so please don't get discouraged. I wish you guys could see what my first cup looked like, because it was a disaster. But with that said, you guys will get there. Okay, so that's pretty much all I want to do with that. I'm going to go back in with my white, and then when I'm done, I'm going to go back with this much finer cut and just kind of fill in those gaps. going to set that to the side. Oh, back to white. I'm sorry if my arm's in the way. All right. So I should have, this will actually just end up being dump glitter now, but just as future reference for you guys, what you should do is knock off your glitter first. That way you don't contaminate your glitter like I just did. If you have a dump cup though, and you don't mind, like I have a dump cup, if you have a dump cup and you don't mind wasting glitter, then it's, you know, it's no big deal. But for those that, this is kind of a color that I didn't really mind contaminating. But if you have a glitter color that you really like and you don't want other glitter to get in it, what you can do is take a pair of scissors and just take your cup and tap, tap, tap the top, and all of that glitter will fall off. You guys can probably see my puppy. He likes to be in here with me to craft. The other thing I wanted to mention about epoxy is it is toxic when it's not cured. For those of you that don't know, it's toxic to your lungs as well. So when you're working with epoxy, you really should have some sort of a respirator on to protect your lungs. And then of course you want to use gloves to protect your skin. Right now I'm not coming into contact with the epoxy, but when I was spreading it on, you guys saw that I was wearing gloves. So I do recommend that you wear gloves when you are using epoxy. So I'm just going to go back in with this finer cut, and it's going to just help kind of fill in any of those gaps that we might have. And it also will help just add a little bit of dimension to your cup. I don't particularly like to use a chunkier glitter on the bottom of my cup because chunky glitter is harder to, excuse you, chunkier glitter is harder to cover with epoxy, and you'll actually end up with more epoxy on the bottom, and that can cause your cup to not sit flat. It's just not really a good look when you give it to a customer and their cup doesn't lay flat. People don't typically like that. So I like to do, if you're going to cover the bottom, you can either do a finer cut on the bottom. That way it usually covers in 1 to 2 coats of epoxy. Or you can opt to leave it blank, and then when you're done epoxying and you think that it's pretty smooth, you can go around with some tape and just tape off around the edges and spray paint the bottom to give it like a nice smooth look. If I were to do that, I would probably use the color that I started with. I would go ahead and tape off. I would spray the color that we started with on the blue side, and then I would spray it over just to give it that nice like finished look. But it's, you know, it's totally up to you. So I'm gonna let this sit for probably about 4 hours before I touch it. Since I have multiple colors here, I am gonna go over it with Rust-Oleum 2x clear gloss spray. I'm gonna do that 3 times. I'm gonna let it dry in between. If you're impatient like me, you can use that little heat gun that I showed you guys before. You can use that to dry off your glitter a little easier. Do not apply any clear before this has sit for at least 4 hours. If you do that, your colors will start to run together because your epoxy will mix with that, that gloss spray, and it'll just run everywhere and you'll have to start completely over. So don't do that. Just be patient. Let it sit for 4 hours before you start that first clear coat. The reason why you want to use a clear coat and you want to spray it 3 times is because when you're going to lay your first layer of epoxy, when you start applying, you're actually going to pull this blue into the white, and you don't want to do that. So if you had a cup that was all this blue color or it was all white, I would say that it's fine. But you know, just to help keep things where you want them to stay, leave it where, spray the gloss to leave it where it is. The other tip that I have for you guys is if you're going to epoxy multiple cups and they happen to be glitter cups, you want to make sure that you spray it really, really good to avoid going from maybe like a glittered cup to a non-glittered cup. You don't want to contaminate your other cups that you're trying to epoxy at one time. So this is that. I'm going to show you guys another tip that I have. It's not pertaining to glitter, it's vinyl, but I just wanted to show you guys this. I'm going to let this sit for 4 hours. When you use chunkier glitter, it's good practice to take a piece of parchment paper. Just a small piece is fine. And you want to go around and kind of just very lightly, don't smush it down. You just want to very lightly pat it. This will help to make your glitter lay a little more flat, and you'll use less coats of epoxy. At the end of this, you don't want your cup to be so many layers thick that people are like, oh my God, I've got more epoxy than I have cup here. So, and then you can just kind of like hold it to the side and look at it and see if you see some pieces sticking up, just kind of pat them down. Really important to go around the sides of the cup. Will you hush? He wanted to be in here so bad. Now he's crying to leave. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'm gonna go let this munchkin out, and I'm gonna grab the other cup so I can show you guys the other tutorial that I have for you. All right, I'm just gonna clean off here. For those of you that are just starting, glitter is super important to make sure that you guys get like a quality glitter. And by that I mean you want to make sure that your glitter is polyester. If you get a glitter that's not polyester, you run the risk of the color that's on the glitter running, and you kind of end up with this like just like silver glitter with color running everywhere. So you want to make sure that you get a quality glitter. You'll find too that different companies have different cuts of glitter and different colors, and the cut of the glitter is also really important too, because the glitter will actually lay very close to each other, so the cut matters when it comes to getting full coverage on your cup. So that's another reason why I said, you know, if you go in with a chunkier glitter, you want to try to fill in any gaps with that lighter glitter, kind of like I have here, to just kind of give yourself full coverage. So for this cup, this is my cup, I'm going to add this little cheetah print here to the bottom. I actually think I need to trim some of this. I'm going to add this to the bottom. It's going to wrap all the way around. So I wanted to show you guys how to apply vinyl to a cup when you're going all the way around. So this has already been weeded, and I've already pulled it off of the backing that comes with your vinyl, and it's just on the back of this contact paper You can get this contact paper at Walmart. You find it over in the, I think it's over by the Tupperware, over in the section where you have like those rolls of vinyl that you would cover like countertops with. That's what this is. It's super cheap. It's not super sticky. If anybody has used Cricut's contact paper, you'll know what I mean by too sticky. It rips the color off of some of your vinyl and some of your like printable vinyl. So this I find is not super sticky, but it also gets the job done. So this is just what I like. You can use whatever you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a very small section, and I'm going to lay it down. I'm actually going to start like right here. To there. So, and then just take your time with this and do it one section at a time. If you don't like anything, you can go back in and remove it, but it's much easier to lay it like this than to try to pick it all off. So once you like the way that that looks, you can pull it back and go to the next section. The idea here is to not pull off all the contact paper at one time, because it's just gonna be too much to handle. So just pull it off little bits at a time and kind of set your vinyl where you want it. This cup has had 2 coats of epoxy already. I don't do any sanding, so what I'll do is I'll prep my cup using the epoxy method, and then I will put 2 coats of epoxy over top. You see how nicely that lined up? So now what I'm going to do is just go through and remove my contact tape. I want to make sure that this is all stuck down. So anyway, what I was saying is I have 2 coats of epoxy on here. I don't do any sanding to my cup until there's at least 2 coats of epoxy on it. It's just my preference. You can accidentally go through that first layer of epoxy and take the color that's on your glitter right off, and you'll end up with just silver glitter, and it's not pretty looking. So what you want to do is just leave the cup alone until you have at least 2 coats of epoxy on there, and then I do my sanding. If at that point I feel like the cup is smooth enough, then I can go ahead and apply my vinyl. I'll show you an example. There's one spot on this cup that I didn't get quite good enough, and I'll show you what I mean by you want to make sure that it's smooth enough for vinyl. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's important for you guys to remember nobody's perfect at this. Even people like myself that have been doing this for several years, we all make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. That's how you learn. Some of the best cups that I ended up making, I made so many mistakes on to begin with, and that's honestly just kind of the way that I learn. I screw the cup up so bad and start over and do it again. So don't get discouraged if you're not a pro at it just yet. So let me see if I can find that spot. So hard to see with this shiny. So there you can kind of see. I don't know if you guys can see that little bump right there. That's where the glitter wasn't completely smooth. So that's what your vinyl will look like if you guys don't get it smooth before you start applying your vinyl. So now all I'm going to do is kind of go around and cut off this excess. Please be careful when you're using an X-Acto knife. You will cut your fingers. You're just going to kind of lay it as flat as you can get it. I would be happy tell you guys the glitter and epoxy products that I use, but I'm not sure if we're allowed to in this group, so so I will refrain from sharing that. I have a couple different glitter brands that I like to use. All right, so that's it. This is also the same technique that you would use if you were to be applying vinyl to an entire cup. I have a little spot where I don't like how bare it is, so I'm just gonna take one of these and I'm gonna stick it right here. That's better. So you can use whatever vinyl you want. I just kind of liked the muted look here where you can like almost barely see the design. And you guys are thinking, why the heck should she use rose gold if her cup's rose gold? This is the look that I was going for, but you could have used white, you can use black, whatever color you want here you can use. But this, like I said, this is for me. I thought it was super cute and it was a cool way to show you guys how to do a wrap around the cup. So but that's it. If you guys liked this, I can do some more tutorials in the future. I really enjoy teaching. When I first started making cups, there were almost no resources out there for me. It was very frustrating. I kind of had to just self-teach. So if you guys like this, just let me know. I can do more tutorials in the future. I have a bunch of Christmas cups that I'm doing right now. I know there were some questions about water slides, so I can do a tutorial on that. But thanks guys for watching, and I will do some more in the future.